There was a lot of growth that took place over my faith life. A lot of it was incremental, just friends and classes that I took in high school and before that were just Sunday school and friends and the relationships that I built there. But I remember a lot of important things in my teenager years that helped me grow in my faith quite a bit. I remember being active in my youth group in high school. That was a really big, important moment for me. I also remember a couple of very important mission trips as well. One of the mission trips, I lived in Michigan growing up, and we went all the way from Michigan up to Maine to help repair and build some houses up there with a work camp. And it was a great time, and we got to meet a lot of wonderful people, and we got to do a lot of awesome projects. We also got to go whitewater rafting before we went on the trip, and I fell out of the raft. Still got a few scars on my butt, but otherwise, it was a really great time. But yeah, I remember being in those mission trips, and I remember this very intense time, this very intense time of faith, this very intense time of being out with people doing what I think is God's work. And that sticks out to me as well. I also remember one of the big things for me and the growth of my own faith, especially as I became older, was taking part in a college campus ministry. Because that was the place where not only was I able to, well, do faith stuff, but I was also able to do faith stuff as an adult. Before that, my parents made me go to church every week. I mean, I liked it, but it wasn't my choice. And then as an adult, I was able to learn what it meant to take control of your own faith, to study books with friends. I did the Disciple Bible Study Program as an adult for the first time. Did all of these other kinds of things around my faith. Did my first overseas mission trip in college. And that was a place of real growth for me.
I grew in my faith through a bunch of different ways. Um, Looking back at this question, this is a complicated question, because some of the people that helped me grow in my faith were my campus minister, a guy whose name is also Scott. Um, you see, when I came to campus ministry, though I was a Christian, though I believed, I wasn't a. I didn't know anything about the faith. I knew I believed in Jesus. I knew kind of that Jesus had died for me. I knew that we were all sinners, and I knew all of that stuff, but I didn't know a whole lot about the faith. I didn't grow up in the church. I didn't know anything. And so he recognized this, um, then started like not only like encouraging me to do Bible studies, stuff like that, to actually read scripture for myself, but he also started giving me responsibilities, things to do, ways that I could concretely serve in ministry. In fact, it was so that'd be '02, and then '03. We went one of the first things I did that was like service oriented was this trip to down around Galveston, Texas. So that's in the Houston area along the Gulf Coast, for those of you who don't know. And we were working on a battered women's shelter, and it was kind of all of this was kind of new. I don't even remember what the actual physical labor was. What I do remember is being with my friends at the campus ministry, worshiping on a beach, on the Gulf Coast. And that was the first time I'd ever seen the ocean. And it was about 10 o'clock at night. We drove down and built a fire and sat around, and my friend brought his guitar and he played, and he just played worship music, and we just sang and worshiped. And it was powerful. And that was one of the things that really helped me grow in my faith. There was also an incident where one of my friends kept doing like some of the funniest stuff, but I'm not going to get into that right now because that would derail this whole thing. Some other people that really had an impact on me were a few of my seminary professors, which, you know, my faith, like I had a pretty solid faith by then, but they really helped me refine myself theologically, or my understanding of the Bible, or things like that. One that really helped me get through a tight spot is I took this class called Preaching for Special Occasions. It was weddings and funerals. And I'll get into more about this story, but it helped me through a very, very difficult task that I would have to do later. Some books that I've read. Mere Christianity by C.S. Lewis is always a thing that I recommend. But probably the biggest book that's had an effect on my faith is The Cost of Discipleship by a guy named Dietrich Bonhoeffer. And if you've known me for any amount of time, you probably know that I have a deep and abiding love for Bonhoeffer's work. Not only his theological work, but the work he did for the German underground during World War II. Bonhoeffer is, if I have a theological hero or a hero outside of Jesus in the faith, it's him.
Tell us about your growth in faith. Who are the people that helped you grow in the faith? Were there any books you read, or a particular Sunday school lesson, or mission trips or service? So I'm not going to say there's a particular book that I read other than the Bible, and then maybe some regular Sunday school curriculum or Bible study materials that I was exposed to over the long haul, over many years. One of my most significant Sunday school teachers was a married couple. They were in their 60s at the time. He was converted by reading Augustine's Confessions. So I think that's 6th, 7th century. If I'm remembering correctly, people still read Augustine. I always thought that was intriguing that he was converted after reading that particular book. But again, I'm going with a process. There were some shining moments. I think of a mission trip in rural North Carolina. I think of my experience with our choir. In high school, I was in a church where we had 2 worship services on Sunday morning, and the youth choir sang at the early service, and the adult choir sang at the later service. So I had to be at the church at 7:50 every Sunday morning during the school year. There were about 50 or 60 of us in the youth choir. It was quite a thing. And we had a couple retreats during the year, learning new music, as well as spending about 75 minutes every week prior to youth group on Sunday nights in practice. And even though it was choir and we were singing, there was a lot of spiritual development taking place there that was very helpful. I mentioned my Sunday school teachers, Mr. and Mrs. Bowerman. There were a lot of youth leaders and youth volunteers at this particular church where I was in high school, not specifically one person, but I think all of them working together really were helpful. And then some other parents, and maybe you're finding that true in your experience in youth, but I could name a lot of parents who exhibited Christian behavior, who spoke words of encouragement, and who said things where it was clear that they really loved Jesus, they loved the church, that their faith was an integral part of their lives, and they really sought to live a Christian life. Maybe you've heard me, if you ever actually listened to me preach. I used to play hangman when my father was preaching, but Mr. and Mrs. Whitfield, again, the Bowermans, my Sunday school teachers.